Welcome to season 15 of the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and boy, do I have a treat for y'all this week. I have Coach Sukhwa Young, I have Ronit Karki, and Jack Satterfield, both of whom are, Ronit's still in juniors, but playing a lot of pros and headed to play for Stanford in the fall. Jack is currently in his freshman year at Vanderbilt, and both of them I have had the opportunity to see play and chat with many times over the past few years. But Sukhwa is a new one for me and new to the podcast. And I am so excited for y'all to get to be a fly on the wall for this conversation with these three very accomplished and very mature and insightful gentlemen. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Sukhwa, Ronit, and Jack. What a group of gentlemen that we have with us this week on the podcast. I'm super excited to dive into their stories, their journeys. Sukhwa, we're going to start with you, the coach, and I would love for you to give our audience a little bit of your background, how you got started playing tennis and where you grew up.
Gotcha. Well, I was born in Alaska. I started playing tennis since I was 3. And I mean, tennis was my first love. Like, I love tennis. There's nothing else that I love more. I mean, I would be 7, 8 years old, just hitting on a wall. Tennis was really limited, obviously, in Alaska. I think the best we could play was maybe 1 hour a day. So if I could just have any chance I can, I'll just be, hitting. I didn't even know I was good at tennis until when I was like 11 or 12. That's when people told me I had to go to Florida or California, for tennis. And I'm like, just had no idea about it. And I ended up moving to Satterfield in 97 when I was 12. Excuse me. And to me, I was like, you're telling me you could play tennis all day, every day? I'm like, that's amazing. So I didn't care who I played with. I just wanted to play. And I don't want to take too much time because I want to obviously hear more from Ronit and Jack. Long story short, I became a really good junior tennis player. I won a couple of Easter Bowls, clay courts, hard courts, won a bunch of national titles, #1 in the nation. Played some ITFs, played against some of the best players in the world, and essentially quit tennis really young. I went to Georgia Tech for a year, playing tennis under Kenny Thorne. And then by the time I was 19, I was done with tennis for many different reasons, burnout, maybe some mental stuff. But, overall, I just kind of got over the game. Quit tennis completely, didn't touch a racket for a few years, got into more in the business side of the world. And then in my mid-20s, I started to hit again, and then ended up coaching a couple kids in the Futures Tour, got a couple of kids to UF. And, that was just so much better than anything else I was doing. And I just kind of wanted to be useful, I didn't, I had my time, I felt like, to be about me. Everything was about me for a long time because I was a tennis player, and it just wasn't satisfying. It didn't scratch any itch, it just that's kind of what led me to my mental downfall. So long story short, I just kind of wanted more of a purpose. And I'm like, hey, how can I be useful and helpful towards others? And the only answer I knew at the time was on the tennis court. And so once I started, I never looked back. And, now I'm in Tampa, 4 locations, 300 kids, doing whatever I can.
I love it. I have to ask you, how did you wind up in Florida at Saddlebrook? How did your parents find out about it? How did you know, being in Alaska, which is not a tennis hotbed, what to do and where to go?
So when I was 8, 9, and 10, when I was 8, 9, and 10, I would take these summer camps or spring camps to different places all around the nation. I remember going to Vic Braden's in California for either a month or so. I tried out Palmer Tennis Academy, IMG, or Nick Bollettieri's at the time in Saddlebrook. And kind of in hindsight, I'm like, I have a 10-year-old son. And so they sent me on an airplane by myself when I was 8 years old. And I'm like, how did you even allow this to happen? And they're like, no, you really wanted to go. We couldn't stop you. So, I'm like, I wouldn't trust.
You were driving the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So after that, they asked me, I remember them asking me, so hey, out of all these, what did you like best? And I was like, I like Saddlebrook the best. And, so no questions asked. That's why they ended up moving us to Wesley Chapel.
Wild, wild story. Okay, Ronit, you're up next. How old were you when you started playing? Let me just, for the audience's sake, they've seen me interview you, I hope, before. Your family has been involved with Parenting Aces for a lot of years. I met your mom and dad at the girls' national hard courts years ago when your sister was playing. And you're going to go play at Stanford next year. I mean, holy cow, this is super exciting. So, how old were you when you started playing? Obviously, your sister played. So, was that kind of the impetus for you?
Yeah, that was the main reason I picked up a racket in the first place. Um, but I also similar to Sakwa, I quickly realized like that's kind of what I want to do, and I just enjoyed practicing and training and I just loved competing in the sport. Like growing up, I played a little bit um, I played some soccer, and the difference between soccer was on tennis, it was all up to me on court. I was making all the decisions, and if I won or lost, it was all on me. And that aspect of the sport kind of enticed me to end up like choosing tennis. And I continued to train in New Jersey, where I grew up, until I was 15. I decided to start doing homeschooling during high school, and then I moved to Orlando to just increase my training, add a little more training hours down there, and it just more rigorous training, and started playing some ITF juniors as well. Was able to have some success there, and yeah, I'm still in Orlando and finishing up high school now, and
That's awesome. And
yeah,
last year, you got to the finals of Wimbledon Juniors as coming through qualies, right?
that's right. Yeah,
That was a pretty big accomplishment.
yeah,
Would
that was one of my prouder moments for sure.
I love it. I love it. All right, Jack, you're a California kid, yeah?
Yes, I'm Bay Area, born and raised. But yeah, so I started there at about 6 or 7. I remember I was at a swim and tennis country club, and I hated swimming, so I had to go over to the tennis courts. And similar to Sakwa, I loved hitting on a wall, so I'd be hitting on the wall like hours a day, and then that what really grew my love. But when I turned about 11 or 12, my family told me we were moving to Florida, not really for tennis reasons, but definitely I think a contributing factor was because they knew the tennis would be better. But I have a lot of family in Florida and stuff like that. So seems to be a pretty common theme in here to go to Florida. But yeah, so then at 12 I moved to Florida, and I found that I talked to the USTA and they told me Sock was a pretty great coach. So I went over to Tampa with him, and I think by then I didn't take it. I took it definitely seriously. Like I never really thought really about like college tennis or anything like that until maybe I moved to Florida and started taking it more seriously with Sakwa, and I really saw improvement when I was 14 and 15 with him. And I did all the USTAs. I won clay courts when I was 15, and then like a year after that, we decided we weren't I don't think we weren't gonna I remember we weren't gonna take the ITF route, but then I think Sakwa had some talking with USTA coaches and they thought I should do it, which I think was a great decision that we ended up doing it, and I got to play some of the Grand Slams. So yeah, just from a country club to the Eric Dobbs Tennis Academy was pretty much my whole career in playing tennis.
And now you are in your freshman year at Vanderbilt.
Yes, now I'm in my freshman year at Vanderbilt playing. It's
Not
awesome.
too
It's fun.
shabby.
Yeah, it's great.
So, what I want to really talk about today with all three of you is what is high performance training for junior tennis players? What makes a training program high performance versus kids that are training to play, let's say, the national L1s, but maybe with the idea that they'll go and win a couple rounds versus you two who were going to the national L1s and winning them or getting to the later stages of the tournaments. what does it take to get to that level on a day-to-day basis? And any of you can jump in with this, because I really want to kind of clear the waters here for the families that think their kids are training high performance, but aren't seeing the results that they have come to expect.
Yeah, I think for me, I I mean the high performance group at Dobson Clinic had a few great guys, but a lot of the guys sometimes I was hitting with, if some of the better guys weren't there, weren't, like you would think, like, playing out ones or getting to the top, or like winning them. So I think a big thing for me was trying to focus every single day on kind of working on something and improving something, and doing my best to get better. And I think so much of it is mental and kind of mental strength. But I think a big thing for me was always trying to enjoy it to get better. So I think the high performance, definitely, like, it depends who you're playing with and stuff, but you don't need to be playing with, great players. I think it's a big mindset. It's a big mindset change from kind of just trying to get better instead of just trying to look for results or stuff like that.
Sukhwa, you want to chime
Sure.
in here?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I always like to work backwards. So number one, the definition of high performance is going to be different for everybody. So if and I literally have kids in the academy with multiple different goals, and depending on, I think getting everybody on the same page on with what that goal is and being honest. Like, I think one of the things you'll see in common with us three is we sincerely love tennis. We don't take it like it's a job. We don't take it like it's a chore. There's no extra onus on, like, oh, like, we also don't take it that seriously. Right? Like, like, yes, there's like life and death situations, and people say war and all that stuff, and we could use those analogies. But at the end of the day, it's still just a game, right? So, it's a game that we love playing, and we want to do the best we can at it. We're all competitors. But I think the common, theme with us three is the desire of just getting better at this craft has always been in the forefront. Now, I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices that had to be made for us to do that. Like, Jack's made sacrifices, Ronit's made sacrifices. When I've made sacrifices, just even traveling with these guys. But that's just kind of comes with the understanding of it. So again, depending on what your definition of it is, because to some people, getting to a third round Kalamazoo might be the best result that they could have. And one thing that we didn't mention was Jack got to the finals of 18s Kalamazoo last year, and he ended up playing in the men's, U.S. Open qualifying. And that was actually a goal that we talked about a year before it happened. You're like, hey, like, you're doing this. Our goal for next year, we're going to try to play the majors, but I don't care about French Open. I don't care about Wimbledon. Like, we want to do well at Kalamazoo and give us a shot for this, and he kind of stayed true to that. Right. So once everybody's on the same page, I think we could start kind of working backwards. And another thing that I told Jack was, I remember when I took him to hard courts in 14s, which was in Mobile. Like, he was still getting offered the kids menu at restaurants. Like, he was a skinny little kid, and he didn't have this growth spurt. So I'm like, hey, if you look at the average age of a top 100 ATP player, they're 26, 27 years old. So like, you're one of those guys that's going to be a little late physically. I mean, even during the U.S. Open qualifying, we're in the cafeteria, we're looking around, and he looks like a child compared to all these guys, right? So just physically, he's just not there. So I'm like, okay, so like, if you want to play pro, so your prime and peak is probably going to be around 26 or 27 years old. So then what are you doing at 25, 26? What are you doing at 24, 25? And down the list, right? So we could kind of have this visual of like what that process needs to be like. So hey, I literally won everything in the 14, 16s, so I could tell you it does not matter, right? So like, it doesn't matter if you win. So from our perspective, again, to some perspective, you might want to win 14, 16s, 18s, Easter Bowl and all that stuff, right? But as people that have won it, like, that's not really the goal. Our goal is here. And so what's the best road, and how do we enjoy this process, as Jack was saying. Now from there, right? So as I was telling Ronit earlier, it's essentially just an imposition of wills, right? So can I impose my will on you, more than you can impose your will on me? But what that means is I got to know what my will is and their will is, which means like I got to know what I'm capable of, right? Like I think you did a interview with Sky Kim and he talked about Sun Tzu, so you got to kind of know yourself before, so in the beginning of it is just kind of developing yourself. Like, hey, like who am I on the tennis court? What's my identity? How do I enjoy playing? What are my physical gifts? What are my physical limitations? What are my mental gifts, tactical gifts? Like how do I develop all these things and just kind of create this person that's going to be, refined to, like go and perform.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Absolutely.
I think this is really important. And I want to ask Ronit and Jack, at what age did you figure out what your tennis persona was? Because that sounds like a very mature concept. I'm not, in my mind, I'm picturing an 8-year-old little skinny kid on the court. Do they know yet what their tennis persona is? I mean, they're probably emulating their favorite pros and, that kind of stuff. But at what point did you develop that? Ronit, do you have an answer for me or you want to think about it?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Are you inquiring about my identity on court?
Yeah,
okay.
What's your will? Like what, Sukhwa was talking about, imposing your will over my, and how strong are we both? At what point did you figure out what that was for you, what that meant for you?
I think when I was around 16 or so, I've kind of realized kind of what my stature is gonna be like, what my strengths are physically, and it's still adapting and shifting, and we make small adjustments with my coach, but for the most part, I'd say around 16 is where I started to get some kind of firm understanding of how I'm gonna play on court and how I'm gonna win points and where my strengths are, weaknesses, etc.
And did that come solely from you, like really getting introspective, or did it come through discussions with your coach, with your parents? How did that come to be for you?
I'd give a lot of credit to just important conversations with my coach, just having good mentorship, because I I wasn't really one to think too much about my identity. I would just kind of go into the match like, okay, I'm just gonna do my game, and we'll see how it goes. And I think this more meticulous approach is just a little better because I kind of have a sense of what exactly that means to play my game, rather than
Jack,
just going without thinking. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was Federer until I was like 12. I'm very far from him, but I started to realize pretty quickly because when I met Sakwa, I remember the first private lesson we had at Van Dyke, he kind of really imposed that question on me, like kind of like how do you want to play? What does your identity want to be? And I think I probably told him something like aggressive all court game baseliner, and he was like looking at me like what are you talking about? But I think yeah, so then that when I was like 12 or 13, Sakwa kind of put that idea in my mind and I started to think about it. And I think not just about how I play, but also about how I compete and how I'm a player who kind of needs to be having fun on court and kind of, not, I mean, obviously taking it very seriously, but not like life or death. And I think on court also, I think I'm a player who doesn't have, some of the bigger weapons or anything. So I need to use some of my grit and kind of just be super solid to win points. So I think mental toughness was a big thing for me, and I need to stay in the moment every single point, which I think Sakwa tried to help me a lot with. Um, but yeah, I think a big part of it was kind of how I compete, because I think my tennis identity at least came pretty natural to me. I kind of always just it was instinctual a little bit. I always kind of played how I played, but I think learning how to compete was what really helped me elevate my game and make some better choices on court, which was just finding a balance in between, not goofing off too much and not like being so nervous that I'm slicing every single forehand and taking it like super serious like that. So I think finding a balance in between like playing your game without kind of hesitation and being loose, but also not being too loose to the point where, you're kind of not taking it seriously enough was massive for me.
I want to ask both of you boys and also you, Sukhwa, about what is the difference between being a good player and being a good competitor? Jack, you want to start? Oh, no, Ronit, go ahead.
Ron, go ahead.
I can get the ball rolling with this one. I think at my academy, we have a lot of discussions about this word competing, and it's brought up a lot and what that means. And competing I think it's definitely a separate aspect of being a good player and being a good competitor, because everyone's skill set is different. Some people, tennis just comes naturally, and they've always been good since they were very young, and like the technique came easily, the volley, serves, power, everything comes kind of simple. But there's moments, like everyone has these pressure moments in matches where you're facing some kind of adversity. You're tired, or you have some doubts, or maybe this is like the third or fourth match you went to third set and you've lost your last three, and you have these kind of just little doubts. And then I feel like that's the point where tennis becomes more mental, because you're able to win if you just play good, but it's more like, how are you going to get yourself to play your best in this moment, and how are you going to limit those little mental gaps where you end up giving the guy a point where maybe he didn't do much to earn it. And I think that's where it kind of separates being a competitor and just a good player.
Jack, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think building off of what that my coach at Vanderbilt always says, kind of being a competitor and mental toughness is making good decisions under pressure. And I think that's been a big thing for me in the last few years, just kind of staying. I think I've learned you have to stay true to your identity in the big moments, but especially in college, playing with the no ads and stuff, you have to be willing to go for it, and kind of, I think in the last like couple of years, I think I've always been a more defensive player, but learning how to kind of take it instead of just maybe waiting for your opponent to miss or something like that. And being a competitor is different for everyone. Like, you're not going to see, like, say for like Rafael Nadal, I think being a competitor for Rafael Nadal is a lot different than being a competitor for Roger Federer, because they contrast so much, because Federer, they're just such different game styles. So I think being a player and competitors is such two different things, but I think mental toughness is the same. And I remember watching a video of Djokovic saying this, and I always think about it and take it to heart. How you're in matches, you're always going to have ups and downs, and you're always going to kind of lose focus, get mad at yourself, lose momentum, and that's inevitable. It's not about that not happening, but it's how fast you can get it back, and how quick you can kind of realize that you're out of it, or what your opponent's doing, and kind of flip it, which I think has been a big thing for me recently as well, and something that every tennis player, this is all something that all tennis players at all levels still need to continue to work on.
So, Sukhwa, in practice sessions, what are you doing to help these guys go from really good player to really good competitor? Because the difference between how you play in practice and how you play in a match situation, a tournament situation, oftentimes comes down to pressure and how you manage that pressure, right? Which is what you guys are both saying. How do you incorporate that pressure into a day-to-day practice session?
There's a guy who got me into tennis. He was to coaching. His name is Martin Van Dalen. And he told me that, in the beginning, like, I knew nothing about coaching. And he's like, hey, your job is to make them uncomfortable at least twice per day. Right. And so that's kind of what I do. I will make everybody uncomfortable. Either it might be mentally, it might be physically, it might be emotionally, it might be whatever way, I'm going to push you to your limit and see how you react, right? And I don't expect you to react the way like a pro would. I want to see like, hey, if you're going to fold, I want you to fold in practice. And then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to see like how we could, come across that. Just like Jack said, like it's inevitable that you are going to lose, focus. But, like, are you, again, this is all part of developmental stuff. Like we're all going to have our own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to different fields. But are you okay being vulnerable? Are you okay to get your ego checked? Like it doesn't. I think Jack one time, like this was a thing in Easter Bowl.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, apart from you losing your passport on your first day in Italy, like he lost this match, and he was like, "Man, like I suck," and I'm like, "Yeah, you do, but it's okay. Everybody else does." He's like, "Yeah, okay." I was like, "No, seriously, everybody playing this tournament also sucks." He's like, "What are you talking?"
That's my motto now too. I took that. It's not his thing. That's my thing now. I tell everyone that.
He's just stealing it now. Lovely. I was
we
like,
all suck.
Yeah. Like,
right.
Make them suck worse.
Right. So I'm like, just okay. So if we suck, just make them suck worse. He goes like, "Oh," but that was like a mental turning point for him, right? So,
but you're at Easter Bowl, which is presumably the top players in the country,
right?
When you said everybody sucks, what did you mean by that?
Well, I said, what I was like, what tournament is happening right now? He was like, Miami Open. I was like, exactly. If you're good, you're playing that tournament. You're not playing this tournament. And he's like, okay. I mean, it's a reach, however, it's, like everybody's going to have that imposter syndrome. So just, kind of learning how to overcome it. Like if I challenge you physically in a fitness thing and you can't make it, and instead of like making an excuse, like just kind of taking that and learning how to get better and seeing that's a weakness. If we're looking working at consistency things or tactical things, or if you're folding in due situations or whatever, like I'm just going to put you in that situation in practice, and and hey, if you want to talk about it, if you want to feel those emotions, then like I'd rather you deal with that there. Like I straight up hook guys in practice. I'm like, I want to see how you deal with that here when I'm hooking you, instead of like, melting down when you're in a tournament. So I'm going to try to put you in these uncomfortable situations as much as I can. Sometimes it's asking, like, I know what their intensity level is and how long they could keep it up for, and I'm going to make it a little bit more to where, whatever situation. So a lot of this, and even the identity stuff, I think it's on the coach to, like not enforce it, but almost like kind of have them I think it's a lot more powerful if you could have them realize it themselves. Like what Ronit did, having the conversations with his coach and just kind of figuring out, hey, like I'm believing this is my game, instead of someone just telling you got to do this and this. I like to figure out where your heart lies. And that's, like I tell people, if you're a grinder by nature and you could serve and volley and that's the correct tactical play, like even if that's the right play, if you're in let's say the semifinals of Easter Bowl and you got, and the coach is telling you to start and volley every single point, like, are you going to do it? Like maybe, like if you're, you might listen to him, but your heart's going to tell you not to, right? So
right.
In that situation, like how do we get that bigger and then have everything else as like a supporting cast to it? And kind of to answer your question to the whole good player and the competitor is a competitor doesn't fold, a good player folds. Like, hey, he's a good player, but hey, I can make him fold. If he's a competitor, he's not going to fold. I'm going to have to take it to him, right? I think it's a little, and how you cross that threshold is, I think, experience. You got to go through those, failures in order for you to overcome it.
So you are all saying something that's really jumping out at me. I asked the question at the beginning, what is high performance training? This is the type of conversation that happens in a high performance environment. It's not that Sukhwa's any better, well, maybe you are, at teaching forehands, backhands, volleys, serves, right?
100% not.
There are a lot of coaches that are good at that. What sets apart high performance is this extra piece of it. I'm putting you in uncomfortable positions. I want to see how you respond to that. And then we're going to sit down and talk about it and figure out how you can respond better the next time it comes up. And then I'm going to put you in another uncomfortable position. And we're going to see if you put it into practice, right? It's honing those types of skills that in my mind, create a high performance training environment. You're creating competitors, not just solid tennis players.
Correct. All with the purpose, right? All with the plan, like it's not just because I just want to be mean about it, right? It's like, hey, like, here's the things that you were missing, in my opinion, and then here's where you want to be. It's just kind of course correcting and filling in those pieces.
Ronit, have you ever been at a point in your junior career where you were like, you know what? No, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I'm missing out on all these things. I want to go do what all the rest of my buddies are doing. And if the answer is yes to that, what kind of got you over the hump? And if the answer is no, I'm going to say I don't really believe you.
No, I've definitely, those exact thoughts have definitely crossed my mind, at various different moments throughout just my junior career. But I will say that the time that thought stays in my mind and I believe in it is very short, like minutes. Within like minutes, I realize, like, you just get back. It's more like in the moment thinking, like you think like, oh, like this practice or this match or these past few tournaments have been terrible, and then before you know it, you surrender back into like tennis, like you almost you don't feel like complete if you don't have this tennis that you're working for, and it's just your dream. So really quickly I come back into realizing what I have to work on and what I want to go out and improve, and just goals I have for myself that I still like. It's still a work in progress, and it's not gonna be perfect right now, and you just have to appreciate the journey, because yeah, there's a lot of those moments for sure.
How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I think Sakwa instilled in me, and I think I've kind of instilled in myself. I feel like, I mean, I go through so many ups and downs and a lot of adversity in the past like 2 years, but I think I've kind of, like, when I was like younger, maybe 11 and 12, 13, 14, I wasn't as good, and I kept kind of getting better and better, and maybe the USTA ranks, ITF ranks, my class. So I think from all of that, I just kind of have like this belief that no matter what, I'm just gonna keep pushing myself to get better and better until I reach my goals. So I think that belief has been really important to me. And I think sometimes, obviously, I have days where I lose it and I'm not concentrated or not really locked in practice. But then I think just motivation and just thinking of kind of like, why am I here? Like, I came to this school to, try to become the best player I can, or I'm showing up like playing 5 hours a day at Dobsha for a reason. And, I have all these goals, and, it just sucks to feel not completing the goals is one thing, but when you don't complete the goals and you know that, you could have done something more, or tried better, kind of living with regrets is kind of the worst feeling you can have. So that's what kind of motivates me.
That's a pretty mature way of looking at this. And I'm just thinking in terms of, at 13, 14, when there's a lot going on in terms of your physical growth, your emotional growth at that stage of your development, to be able to kind of have that mindset of, I've worked so hard for these past few years and I don't want to have regrets. That's a very adult way of approaching this. Where did that come from? I mean, was that something that you just had inside of you? Did it come as a result of conversations with your coaches, with your parents?
I'm probably just a little delusional, and I think that's good. But I think Sakwa helped a lot with that too. Kind of, Sakwa always kept me very humble, but kind of very hungry. So I think, with kind of always saying, oh, they suck, but I mean, you suck, but they suck worse. And kind of, I always had belief that, yeah, I mean, no one's really any better than me. I think we're both just two people with tennis rackets. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to like who works harder and who's mentally tougher. But I think I honestly don't. I think it's a lot of been myself who's instilled that in me. I mean, traveling the world and playing, I mean, for the last like 8 years, competitive tennis, I think you just kind of pick up on stuff like this and kind of get these little things that kind of motivate you or things about you that kind of help you to get to the next level and achieve your goals. But I think, yeah, everyone's different, but that's kind of what it's kind of clicked for me.
Rana, you had a big turning point last year in your junior career and with the Wimbledon finish and getting through qualies and all that. I think we talked about this at the US Open last summer, but do you feel like there was a point or an event that kind of turned things for you? Or do you feel like it was just, I'm sticking with this, I'm going to keep going because I have the confidence that I can get there if I keep doing the work,
Um, I
or
think
both?
I think there wasn't any turning point in particular because I mean, looking before the weeks before that tournament, the weeks, Roland Garros had a pretty decent week, and I mean, before that, I wasn't playing remarkable by any means. I was playing good, but it wasn't anything that would signify that, oh, I was going to go to Wimbledon and do really well. Um, it kind of just came down to, I think this is a common theme I'm seeing as I'm playing some of these pro circuit events as well. You just got to go into every week with the mindset of it's a new week. Here are the challenges. Maybe this week, some part of my body is a little hurt, or I'm kind of dealing with this mentally. It's a whole new set of problems, new conditions, especially, which is really important because sometimes all it takes is you show up to tournament site, you realize, you like these courts, they suit your game well, and you just play a few good matches. Maybe you get a little lucky, who knows? And then all of a sudden, you're having an amazing tournament, and this happens pretty frequently, but I mean it doesn't happen too frequently, but you kind of have to go into every tournament giving it your all with your mental focus and your belief, and I think it will happen more often than it would if you weren't going into tournaments fully believing in yourself and trying to give yourself the best possible opportunity to make a good run.
Do you feel like coming off of that Wimbledon showing that you kind of move to a different level after that tournament, going into the rest of your summer and then into the fall?
Well, actually, this reminds me, I had an important conversation with my coach after Wimbledon that just to not put too much extra pressure because of Wimbledon on myself, because I'm still the same player I was pretty much before and after Wimbledon. Um, just because I had one good tournament doesn't mean every tournament's going to look like that, and I have to expect that of myself all the time. And that kind of helped me keep me grounded, but also remind me that it's like it's a very like you improve with very small increments um in tennis now, and it's not just going to be, oh, all of a sudden I'm playing 10 times better. My serve's 10 miles per hour faster. It's just very slow increments, and you have to be very patient with it.
I think that's an important thing to remember for sure. Jack, did you have a similar kind of shift after Kalamazoo last year? I mean, this had been your goal for the year to qualify into the US Open qualies, and like you did
Yeah,
it.
I similar to Ronit, I think I never really, I mean, obviously that result, like you're so proud of it because you did it, but I don't think it really affected me too much because I knew, I mean, the margins are so thin. You can see in the pro tour and like everything, the margins are so thin. So I think it kind of keeps you grounded. But I think for me, I feel like there's so many ups and downs, and usually, there'll be like, for example, when I won clays when I was 15, I won the clay court nationals, and then that was a huge high for me. And then I go to Kalamazoo and I lose like second round, and then that was a big down for me, and I was struggled, and then it took me a little bit to kind of get back from there and build back up. But then I think just because of I lost early and had a tough experience, then I could kind of get better. So I think for me there's been so many ups and downs, and without the downs I think the ups wouldn't have come. So I think that's been a big part for me, kind of like staying humble through the ups. And I think a quote somebody said, but it always sticks with me is wait, I have to think about this. The highs are never as good as you think, and the lows are never as bad as you think. It's a big quote I always think about because I mean, it's really true. You're never as good as you think, and you're never as bad as you think, pretty much.
Right. Which kind of
Yeah.
goes back to Sukhwa's statement that, yeah, you suck, but they also suck. So,
Yeah.
and Sukhwa, how do you as a coach help these guys manage these ups and downs as they go from having, a phenomenal tournament to maybe having a less phenomenal tournament or maybe a really awful tournament, and keeping that motivation going and that desire to keep getting better and to keep putting the work in?
I think understanding, again, just kind of understanding the player, having that communication of like, hey, like we're not gonna, for example, if you're talking about the junior ITF tour, it's many different surfaces, everything from from hard courts to red clay to grass to fast US Open courts, so like it's kind of, so you're not gonna excel unless you're one or two generational talents, like unless you're a couple of those guys, you're not gonna excel in every single surface. So we're obviously going to do the best we can. How are we going to improve and try to do the best in what we feel like the conditions best suit us? Like for example, I felt like Ronit's game was there back in November of Merida, almost a year prior to Wimbledon. Like I'm seeing him, like his game's coming together, his ups and downs are getting a lot smaller. There were some periods where I'm not going to go into his game, but those little weaknesses have getting better, and you kind of see that in Brazil, and you see it getting better in Europe. So he was already kind of like refining his game, whether he knows it or not. And I always believed in his game, and it kind of came into fruition in Wimbledon, and for Jack as well, right? It's like, hey, like again, like I kind of knew he wasn't going to be the best at grass just from just from, again, certain reasons. I'm not going to go into details. So, I just kind of had a hunch like he wasn't going to do that well there. And I knew French Open was going to be his first Grand Slam experience. So, like that, like it's really hard not to be tight and nervous in your first Grand Slam. So hence why a year prior, I'm like, the goal is Kalamazoo. I don't want you to even think about French Open or Wimbledon. We're going to obviously try to play that. And so kind of like being strategic on the coach's end and trying to buy them into like, hey, this is what we're training for. Here's, like here's what we're going to try to give our best chance to perform, and just kind of go that way. In the meantime, I think like even, traveling when it's 3-4 weeks at a time, like, for me, Eric Dopsha always tells me it's my job to take care of the intangibles. And so what that means for me is I got to figure out everything from the players' eating habits to like how are they going to perform the best in the fourth week, and improve through this time. So, like how early do they want to be on the site? When do they want to practice? Like, once they're done, like how long do they want to stay there? Like, so just kind of on the back end, whether they know it or not, try to, like, do some of them need like a day off to vacate? Do they like to be on the court more? You kind of have to know all these little details and, not really burden them with it because and so we want to give them the best chance to perform when the time comes and not burn them out mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever. Like, are they working out? Are they doing like all? So by then you got to kind of have a system, so we go previous to that, like for example, because I played these tournaments, I know it's tough to play weeks on, like back in the day there were satellites, so you minimum had to play 4 weeks, and I know how tough it is that third or fourth week. So in the USTA juniors before this happened, like I purposely had Jack play these long tournaments just to see how it react, and like the third week he was just like, I just want to go home. I can't do this, so like get that experience. So and then learning how to work out, right, and then learning how to have a sleep schedule, learning how to control your diet, like all those things you got to kind of figure out along the way. And once you have that routine, then you could kind of take it. So again, I know we're talking about here, but there's a lot that goes in the middle and the beginning, from foundational stuff to developmental stuff to habits to be able for you to perform. Because if you have the significant hole, it's really hard to cover. right?
For sure.
So all the things that, like, let's say Todd Whittam talks about of the basics, and 100% needed, So like we got to go through all that, so then we could actually give a chance to, continue performing.
Love it. I want to switch gears before we close down here, but Ronit, I want to just ask you, what are you most excited about going to Stanford next year? What are you hoping to get from that experience?
Well, obviously, I want to improve as much as I can on the tennis wing, but I mean that's kind of been a common theme of my life for the last as long as I can remember. So, along with that, just kind of it's just gonna be like a new life, I guess. Like I'm gonna be living somewhere new, new circle around me, new coach, just a lot of new things, and it's just gonna be like a fresh start in a way because I've been at this routine with um being in Orlando for a while now, and it's just gonna be like a lot of new things. Obviously, I haven't started yet, so Jack would be a little more knowledgeable of what I can expect, but yeah, pretty much that's it.
Jack, what is one thing that you didn't expect at Vanderbilt that kind of surprised you about being a college tennis player?
I think it was honestly college tennis was a lot different, I think, than junior tennis. Just kind of playing the matches, it's a different type of nerves you get. So it was weird kind of getting used to it and kind of playing for the team instead of maybe yourself. And kind of in junior tennis, I thought, oh, it's just the same thing. But honestly, it wasn't really at all. And at the beginning, I think it was tough for me because I was not having as much fun on court, I think, as I was in the juniors, maybe. But I think as of recently, in the last month or so, I've kind of realized that in college tennis, especially, you just have to kind of enjoy competing with your team and just enjoy being out there and getting loud, which now I'm probably the loudest guy in college tennis right now. So,
Love it.
yeah, so I think that it's been so fun since I've kind of had a little bit of a mindset change instead of maybe I think taking it too seriously or something is it's kind of tough in college tennis because of all the energy and everything that's happening and going on. It's just so chaotic and stuff. So you kind of just have to get yourself in there and enjoy it, I think. And I think a big thing is, yeah, just working on your game and trying to become the best player you can while just kind of competing and enjoying it in college, I think that's the key to success for sure in college. Write that
Great.
down on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Write that down, Ronit. Ronit, if you could go back and give one piece of advice to 7 or 8-year-old Ronit, what would you tell him? And Jack, you can be thinking about this because I'm coming to you next.
I guess just appreciate the process because I feel like as a young player, you're kind of always thinking ahead and thinking like what's next or like where just thinking about oh, it's gonna be so cool when I'm 12 years old and I'm like playing really well, and then once you're 12 you're like, okay, I'm gonna become big and strong and be hitting the ball super hard and stuff, and you kind of just forget that it's so great just being in that moment of being young, and there's so much to look forward to that you don't even know about because you just don't know what's there in store for you, and um just appreciating that mystery, honestly.
Love it. Jack, what
I
would you
wouldn't tell
tell?
myself any. I wouldn't tell myself anything. I think
Oh, come on.
he's got to learn it from himself. No, but honestly, similar to what Ron had said, just staying in the moment because it goes by so quick at the end of the day. And I think I had such a cool experience playing all these different tournaments and staying in the moment. And maybe, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot, but if I could go back and just enjoy it more is what I guess I would do. But yeah, I think it's important for him to figure it out himself. But yeah, I would tell him similar to Ron, just stay in the moment and just enjoy every aspect of it and just try to go out there and give it your all with no regrets. And that's really all you can do in the end.
Awesome. Sukhwa, any last bits of advice for our listeners before we sign off here?
No, just enjoy, I think ask a lot of questions. Don't don't get caught up with the results, and just like even for me, like I don't assume I know anything, right? Like, I mean, even in my academy, I don't feel like I'm in the best coach. So, I'm a
I've
part
heard
of
differently, I have to tell you.
No, I mean, it's like, honestly speaking, so I get to learn from everybody. I don't know all of tennis, so just kind of being a student and just kind of always like, looking to get better. Like I think I heard you saying, just get 1% better every day.
Yeah.
That's really control the controllables, which is what I could do, and that's kind of the same for everybody. And just understand, like, most coaches are, like they're there for your kid or for you. They're not trying to, so we don't have to go against them, or like just really try to be a team. And like they're saying, like it's a process. We can't, there's no control over it, right? So like if I could, like people say, oh, like if it's tight, like I just got to play better. I'm like, for example, it's third set tiebreaker, and all of a sudden, like they're going to play their best tennis. I'm like, dude, if you could have played better, you already would have. Like it wouldn't have been in the third set tiebreaker, right? These are all like uncontrollables. So kind of like that, where just enjoy yourself, the highs, the lows, the bads, the goods, and it's a game. So like, don't take it too seriously.
I think we end there, because that is the best advice, and I love it. Thank you guys so much. I know it's late for y'all, so I appreciate y'all doing this, and it's great to see you. And Sukhwa, was so great to meet you, and I hope
Nice
you'll come
to meet you as
back
well.
another time. We'll keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having us on.
Of course. To my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.